What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tomatoito Boxing Show. And man, what a night! What a night of boxing that we witnessed last night. Top ranked boxing on point as far as their matchmaking went, as far as the show that they put on. From everything that we were listening to during the broadcast, the weather conditions were really bad, and the people showed up. The people showed up in large numbers, and the fights were just on point. Something in the weather, something in the atmosphere. It was just one of those nights where you had performances of the night, and at least in the top three cards in the leading to, or the top two cards leading to the main event. Man, like the gap between fight of the night, performance of the night was so small that it was a you pick 'em type of night overall. Now the fans, us, we won. We were the winners of the overall night, and let's jump into it because man, the Maloney Sanchez fight set the tone. There was really good fights leading up to that. Really competitive fights, but lesser known fighters, so people are somewhat tuning in. Hardcore boxing fans, well, yeah, of course, they're picking apart the styles and the matches as they're leading up to the bigger names. But for the casual fans, well, they're in and out of their seats and walking around, so forth. Exciting fights, a lot of cheers throughout the night. But once we got to the Maloney bantamweight matchup against Saul Sanchez, they garnered the attention. They earned and ended up pulling all focus on their fight. And as the fight proceeded, it only got more intense. It was one of the most intriguing fights that I have witnessed, definitely, obviously, of this year because we're just kicking off the calendar. But it was one of those intriguing fights that when I was watching it, it just reminded me of like those old school fights that I would watch either in black and white or fights that took place in the early 80s, maybe in the 70s. One of those back and forth fights that if this fight would have taken place, say in 1980 or late 70s, this would have been a 15-round fight, and I would have been so intrigued to see how the fight would have ended out because both of them emptied the tanks. They emptied out their tanks, they left it all out in the ring, and that's exactly what we love to see as fans. It was the Maloney, the two Maloney brothers, they're just as fan-friendly as it gets. They just leave it all out there. They put exciting fights. They're willing to engage. They're willing to put it all out there and go out on their shield. And for Jason Maloney, I mean, he was on the hunt for a title for so long. He finally successfully got his hands around the WBO title. This was his first defense, and it was no easy work. The lesser-known Saul Sanchez, of course, had said that he was going to stop Jason Maloney. A lot of confidence. I didn't know much about Sanchez either, but he was quick to let everybody know that he was there, that he meant business, that he was there to win. And it was one of those exciting fights down to the end. A lot of the people booed at the decision at the end because they felt that Sanchez did enough down the final stretch, especially in the championship rounds, to have pulled it off. But the sixth round was a huge one for Saul Sanchez as well. But it was one of those fights where it was a back and forth fight that was fought in close quarters. And Jason Maloney, one of the judges ended up issuing a draw. And then two of the judges gave 4 rounds to Maloney in a 116-112 agreement, giving Maloney the majority decision. He successfully retains his title and successfully defends the title for the first time. So now he's got that out of the way, not just becoming a champion, but now defending the title, which seems to be the hardest. The hardest thing is getting there to a lot of fighters, but even more so staying there. And now he successfully defended this title for the first time. Saul Sanchez is going to be trouble for anybody. I didn't know much about him, like I said, but I'm super intrigued to witness more in this year in his future fights. He left it all out there. They emptied out that tank, especially down the 12th round as the clock is trickling down. The crowd is on their feet, cheering both of these champions on, both of these fighters, and they just emptied it all out. They threw everything they had left, and Manny Robles quickly goes through the ropes, trainer of Saul Sanchez, and hugs both Maloney and Sanchez embracing both of them for the performance that they had just put on. Amazing fight. And if these two run it back, I hope it's stateside and I get to witness it in person, because it was one of those exciting fights that just elevated the tone of the night and set the standard for what we should be witnessing the rest of the way. And sure enough, it was one of those fights that caught your attention and you were like, oh, this is going to be great as the next two fights come on. So congratulations to Jason Maloney retaining his title, and congratulations to Saul Sanchez. Holy crap, what a warrior. What a warrior. And that's exactly what we want to see. I can't wait to see him in there and against anybody. Man, I mean, Junto Nakatani is going to be moving up to Bantam pretty soon to challenge Santiago, who became the WBC champion against Nonito. So Saul Sanchez in a fight against Santiago, depending on who wins that fight, whether it's Nakatani or so, he would give a hell of a time to either one of them. And for Maloney, of course, he's going to be seeking the unification belts, waiting to see what happens with these two champs when Nakatani moves up to challenge Santiago. So amazing fight. Then we move on to the co-main event, and that was Christian Mbili, who at one point had the IBO title. Christian Mbili ranked fairly high by most sanctioning bodies, and especially by the WBC, undefeated fighter. He stopped Rohan Murdoch in the 6th round. Well, to start the 6th round, because the corner did not allow Rohan to answer the bell, and so it ended in the 6th. Was it at the end of the 5th? Starting the 6th, or was it at the end of the 6th to start the 7th? I think it was at the end of the 6th. I'll double check on that. Nonetheless, Rohan Murdoch just took too much damage. At the hands of Mbili. Christian Mbili is a really good fighter, well-rounded, who attacks the body and understands his positioning really well. When he was attacking Murdoch to the body, especially when he had him against the ropes, it was an onslaught of an attack to the body to oblige Murdoch to drop his guard. If it wasn't going to be due to defense, it was going to be due to damage. And Murdoch would end up obliging, dropping his guard. And between those punches, those body punches, Mbili is so good at disguising his body attack and would unleash one of those hooks to the head. And that's how he was hurting Murdoch in major fashion. Very good attack. Very impressed with Mbili, because it's one of those names that we've heard of in the past few years as he's been coming up. But one of those fighters that you tend to move to the wayside because they haven't been challenging any upper level opposition, but rather more so journeymen and prospects and newer fighters coming into the realm. Impressive by Mbili. He called out Saul Canelo Alvarez, of course, at the end of the fight. That's the fight that everybody wants. But Mbili would actually be a fun fight to watch against David Morrell. I know recently I recorded an episode putting the 24, my 24 dream fights for 2024. And I ended up mentioning where I would like to see David Morrell fight Osleis Iglesias, who is the current IBO champion. Mbili remains undefeated, 26-0. And what a good fighter he is. I mean, he looked really well-rounded. He was pretty much in control of the fight the entire way. 22 knockouts to his favor out of the 26 victories. And the Cameroonian, who's based out of France, fights out of France, is going to pose problems to just about anybody at 168. I mean, if Andre decides to stay at 168, this would be a fight that I would like to see him on, because this is a live dog now, and he just garnered the attention of the world by being on such a big card as the co-main event to Artur Beterbiev and CALLUM Smith, and he got a lot of attention, and he put on a performance that he should have to start calling out the bigger names and become one of the big dogs at 168. It's awesome because we get to the point where we're thinking just Canelo, Benavidez, David Morrell, and then we start thinking like, well, Caleb Plant already lost to Canelo and Benavidez, but he's still got a lot of talent. We haven't heard from Danny Jacobs in a while. We got Munguia, who campaigns at 168 now. He's about to fight John Ryder later this month. So we're thinking about those names, and it's almost like we're running out of names, and this is awesome. Osleis Iglesias to me is one of the quiet fighters in the current moment that's not getting a lot of attention. A lot of people don't know about him, but they will within a couple fights because he's going to put on a performance similar to this. I have no doubts about it. And if he was to fight David Morrell, two Cuban fighters with the Cuban boxing pedigree and great amateur backgrounds, would be an awesome fight. Like I said, Osles is the IBO champ, and Mbili has been fairly highly ranked by most of the sanctioning bodies. This would be a legit fight for Mbili to get into a David Morrell. Or if David Benavidez and Canelo doesn't happen Cinco de Mayo, then this would be a great fight. But look for Mbili to start fighting Durrell, to start fighting, maybe get into a fight. He might be too dangerous for a Berlanga. I don't know if Eddie Hearn would do that, but maybe he would get up there to a Berlanga. And those would be decent names that if he gets them under his resume, he's going to be knocking on the door of even bigger names and title contention. So he's right there. Mbili against the winner of Ryder Munguia would be really good. Mbili against the David Benavidez, for David Benavidez to continue to stay busy. This would be a tough fight for him. I really believe it. This would be a tough fight for him. This is not a David Lemieux or a Gabe Rosado, who are tough, blood and gut type fighters, but smaller fighters that moved up and campaigned at different divisions like David Lemieux. Gabe Rosado didn't fight Benavidez, of course. I'm just using them as an example, but David Lemieux did. And David Lemieux, who was a 160 fighter, went up to 168, and of course we saw what happened with against David Benavidez. Look for Mbili to put some good work pretty soon. If you look at his resume, he just beat Rohan Murdoch. He beat, leading up to this fight, Damon Nicholson, who was the introductory fight for Dimitri Andrade at 168. Carlos Gongora, who was ranked fairly high and was the IBO champ at one point. Carlos Gongora ranked fairly high by the WBC as well at one point, and Mbili took care of that. He's beat DeAndre Ware, the veteran Najib Mohammedi, who is well over 50 fights in his career, Ronald Ellis. I mean, he's got some good names. This is not the most recognizable, marketable names, but he's got good names of good boxers where he's been getting really solid work from. And that's why he looked the way he did yesterday, just well-rounded. Very impressive performance by the Frenchman in Mbili, Christian Mbili, and I look forward to seeing who he's gonna challenge, who he's gonna get in the ring with. I hope he doesn't take a step back. I hope they don't do him a disfavor by matching him just on a stay busy fight with a lesser known fighter. But this is his perfect opportunity and as perfect of a performance as he could have put together by stopping Murdoch. That should catapult him into a more recognizable name. Maybe not directly into title contention, but a more recognizable name. If he was to fight a Caleb Plant, a Dimitri Andrade, should Andrade decide to campaign at 168 and stay there, I feel like you've heard me say it multiple times in the last few episodes. I feel that he should return to 160. That's where Dimitri Andrade belongs, in my opinion. He should go back to 160 and chase Janibek, try to get his title back. I think that's a winnable fight for Andrade, and try to unify that division and get himself into a big fight against Jermall Charlo. That would bring some intrigue to that division, which seems to be a little bit dull at the moment, especially with Triple G vacating all the titles. We got an older champion, Erislandy Lara, Janibek, who's looking for fights and can't seem to get a good fight, but he's a unified champ, the only one to have two titles at the time. Carlos Arames is coming up, waiting for Jermall, and Jermall has a WBC. So that whole circus right now, that seems to be a little dull. Dimitri Andrade going back over there, I'm sure the fight with Jermall would be an easy one to make, and it would be a big moneymaker for both of them. But if he gets titles to back him, it would be an even bigger fight if he was to lift those titles from Janibek, and I think he possesses a style to beat Janibek. Some of you may disagree. I like Janibek a lot. I think he has a lot of power, more power than what Andrade could handle. But when we just saw the spirited effort that he gave against Benavidez, he's not going to quit for anybody. He's not going to stop coming at you until he just goes out on the shield. And that was a very valiant performance that he put on. And I think he would pose trouble to Zdanovic. So Mbili, if he decides to stay at 168, Mbili's the one to, that would be a great fight for both of them. Who else? I'm trying to think there. I know there's other fighters. Obviously, there's tons of fighters out there at 168. But none that pop in my head, and that's exactly what's happening right now, that it's starting to get slim pickings at 168, and he just announced himself in a big manner to the whole division. So David Morrell, if that fight with Osleys doesn't happen, which I don't even think it's in talks, but it's one that I put on my list as a dream fight for this year. If he doesn't get Benavidez, which he's clamoring for, or Caleb Plant, which he's been asking for, this would be a great fight for him. Take on a Christian Mbili, continues to get even better and continues to get solid work rather than stay busy tune-up work. So that was the co-main event. Then we move up to the main event, the fight that we were all tuning in for. 3 titles on the line at light heavyweight. Artur Beterbiev, was his streak going to stay alive? His unblemished professional record, was it going to stay alive, or was Callum Smith going to be too much for him? In the preview episode, you guys heard me call it that I saw the fight going one of 2 ways. It was either going to be a Beterbiev Joe Smith repetition, where he was just going to ragdoll him and finish him, and we would be superbly impressed with what Beterbiev would do to a great, solid fighter like a Joe Smith by repeating that performance against Callum Smith. Or we were going to see a Beterbiev Yarde, Anthony Yarde type performance, which was his most recent fight for Beterbiev last year. And that's exactly what we got. It was a solid performance and attempt by Callum Smith. Really good work that he provided for Artur Beterbiev, in which Beterbiev answered all the questions, all the naysayers, all the doubters. Remember that in the lead up to this fight, Eddie Hearn himself was saying that this was going to be a factor of age, where age was going to become a factor. The fact that he doesn't fight so often, the fact that he's 38 years old against the younger 33-year-old Callum Smith. We were going to see the young fighter dethrone the old fighter. He was going to outpunch. He was going to hurt Beterbiev, especially because Beterbiev tends to get hit a lot. But the man is a brick wall. He proved it, and for anybody who doubted him, for me, I saw the fight going one of 2 ways, but I didn't. It's hard to pick against Beterbiev when he's a brick wall of a man. He walks through the punches. He takes everything. He does get hurt. He does get hit. I agree. He does get hit. But he stays so composed and continues to come forward that it diminishes the spirit of the opponents when they're hitting him with everything they got, and this guy continues to walk down and come at you. And punch at that. He's got a sledgehammer of a jab. His left jab was the story of the night, where he just continuously threw it at will and landed effectively. Callum Smith hit him with some of the hardest punches that I think anybody has hit Beterbiev with. He stumbled Beterbiev on a couple of occasions. The second round, I actually gave it to Callum Smith because the fight started so tight. But Beterbiev definitely secured the first round. By the second round, Callum Smith was leaving it all out there. And we started seeing a matter of styles on full display. And I gave the second round to Callum Smith, the only round I gave him. By the third round, more of the same. They continue to go at each other, with Beterbiev starting to break down Callum Smith. Callum Smith would find himself on the ropes a lot. His nose begins to bleed. And you start seeing Callum Smith abandoning his plan and just start swinging for the fences. He begins with the suppressive fire, hoping to keep Beterbiev, to stop him in his tracks a bit and keep him at bay so he could get back into his game plan and begin to affect his game plan. But Beterbiev was too relentless and just kept walking forward. Like I mentioned on the preview episode, he covers ground so fast that if you try to make a fight from a distance, he doesn't allow you to do that. He covers ground so fast by way of his jab. He has perfected that, and his jab is like I called it, a sledgehammer of a punch. He throws that like a piston over and over and over and over, and he's connecting and breaking through the guard. And that in itself allows Beterbiev to throw the jab and inch forward and throw the jab again and inch forward. And it's in such a quick succession that next thing you know, he's right in your face and he's unleashing with 6, 7, 8, 9 punches. And you find yourself on the ropes, on the defensive, on the back foot, off balance, and in danger. Impressive performance by Artur Beterbiev, who answered all the doubts. If he's too old, didn't look it. He's slowing down, didn't look it. He looked great. This is one of the best versions I've seen of him. If there was ever any doubt that the Bivol fight was going to happen with Beterbiev, this may be the cloud that looms over us now, because Beterbiev needed to look like a softer fighter, a fighter that finds himself in the latter stages of his career, in order for Bivol and Bivol's management team to be like, this is it. This is the time. Let's take him. He's wearing out. He's slowing down. Let's get him. Bivol fights a lot different than Callum Smith. Bivol's able to adapt on the fly and adjust as the rounds progress, but so does Beterbiev. And Beterbiev takes punishment so well, has a great chin. There's no signs of him slowing down. 20 wins, 20 knockouts, 3 titles of the 4. And when asked at the end of the fight by Bernardo Osuna, what did he attribute this victory to? And he answered, luck. As humble of a champion as you could ever have. He said, well, I had luck on my side. He was interviewed in the lead up this week by Mark Kriegel, which they put on there. ESPN ended up displaying a brief portion of that interview where he asks him if he felt that he was a well-rounded boxer. To which Beterbiev said that he's getting better. He doesn't feel like he is, but he's getting there. He's getting better. Work in progress. If this is a work in progress, imagine when at 38, imagine when he feels that he's at his peak and performing on all cylinders. Imagine what that version of Beterbiev is going to look like. As humble as a champion could be, and in my opinion, should be. What a performance by him. En route to his victory, Callum Smith took a lot of punishment. And in my opinion, the performance that he put on should raise Callum Smith's stock as well. I would love to see Joe Smith against Callum Smith. That would be potentially a Maloney Sanchez type fight, where they would fight at close quarters and it would be as fan-friendly of a fight as you could ask for. Could Callum Smith turn around and beat Bivol? It would be an intriguing fight, and it would be one that I would like to tune into as well, because it would be a completely different, a fight that would be fought completely differently. Bivol is not Beterbiev, does not attack like Beterbiev. It would be more of a tactical fight, to where Callum Smith could potentially affect his game plan and keep Bivol at bay with his reach and his height. His challenge would be getting countered, because Bivol is a master at countering. He proved it against Canelo, and we saw what Canelo did with with Bivol, with Bivol, but what he did with CALLUM Smith, that was the sole defeat that CALLUM Smith had up to last night. And Beterbiev becomes the first man to drop CALLUM Smith, a man that had never touched the canvas, ended up seeing the canvas twice. And the heart that CALLUM Smith steps onto the ring with just made you appreciate what you were watching, what you were witnessing last night, because unbeknownst to CALLUM Smith, he had no idea that Buddy McGirt, when he was on the canvas for the second time, the referee's counting at 4, 5, 6. Buddy McGirt's already crossing into the ropes, into the ring, stepping into the ring to wave off the fight. Unbeknownst to CALLUM Smith, he got up by the count of 8 and was on his feet, ready to go again, a shell of himself. He was already just going in to accumulate further damage. But what a heart on CALLUM Smith to just answer the call. Where most fighters would have just been filled with doubt because of the amount of pain that they're feeling at that moment. Self-doubt. Would have just stayed and finished out the 10 count. He answered the referee's count. Referee turns around and gets the attention of Buddy McGirt as he's calling off the fight, saying no more. And CALLUM Smith drops to his knees again to catch a breath of fresh air. In the post-fight interview, CALLUM Smith mentions, "It's a horrible feeling to know that I'm not the best. It's as humbling and as heartbreaking of a comment that you could hear somebody say, because he left it all out there. He wanted it so bad, and the way that he was fighting, he was looking to turn momentum to his favor and in his favor with the punches that he was throwing. It was desperation punches, but he was landing. Maybe not cleanly, but he landed a lot of good punches on Beterbiev, and he was throwing with everything, with desperation, with urgency, just trying to get Beterbiev off, but also trying to switch momentum in his favor. And he landed those tempo shots that I was discussing in the preview episode. He's very accurate with his looping hooks and at landing right on the tempo and on the ear. He was very successful and landed several of them on Beterbiev, to which Beterbiev just continued the onslaught and unleashing punches and bunches. He hit him with everything. Disoriented, worn out, gassed out, CALLUM Smith succumbed to the damage and the accumulation of punches that Beterbiev threw at him. But not due to a lack of effort or heart or spirit. What a performance by CALLUM Smith. And in my opinion, his stock just rose. It didn't take any hits. With a performance like that, who doesn't want to see him again? Super impressed with his performance. And for Beterbiev, man, why is he not on the talks of being at the top? Look at his resume. Look at his body of work. Look at what he's doing in the sport. And that version that we just witnessed last night does not look like he's slowing down anytime soon. And it brought even more intrigue to the fight with Bivol, because both of them are at that point where they need to face each other. It hasn't happened sooner, but it shouldn't be delayed any further. They are at that perfect point right now where these forces need to collide. And if and when they do, it's going to be one of those fights that we may be talking about for years to come. Because neither fighter fails to perform. Congratulations, Top Rank. Congratulations, Matchroom. Great matchmaking, and awesome to see these two big promoters, big name promoters, as much disdain as there is between them at times. It's great that they're working together to bring us such fights. And in the end, us, the fans who love this sport so much and love to talk about this sport so much and love to attend and witness the sport firsthand and participate within the sport. Listen, this is what we've been asking for, and it's happening. We've had some good years of boxing in the past few years. Last year was exceptionally great, and this year is just getting underway with looking to overshadow what we witnessed in 2023. Congratulations, Beterbiev. Congratulations, Jason Maloney, Christian Mbili. Wow. A lot to talk about. And a lot to look forward to in 3 different divisions by 3 different great fighters, 2 of whom are champions, and Christian Mbili, who is en route already, calling out the biggest name in boxing in Saul Canelo Alvarez. So congratulations, and I can't wait to talk to you guys in the next episode. Let's see what else we get into here as we continue to break down fights and recap some of these big events that are already getting underway in 2024. Take care of yourselves. Talk to you all soon. Have a good night.